It's just for a few days, Mom. My son Michael said it in my kitchen, one hand on the refrigerator door, the other reaching for my favorite coffee mug. A few days, he repeated. Until we get through this busy stretch. You know how it is. It landed on me like a soft lie, warm on the surface, but cold underneath. What he didn't know was that those few days would turn into 2 years, and somewhere along the way I would start to feel less like a mother and more like live-in help. My name is Lydia. I was 72 years old then, a widow with a small house, a little garden, bingo on Thursdays and choir on Sundays. People at church said I had raised my kids right. I believed them. Laura's schedule is insane, Michael said, rubbing his forehead as he sat at the table. The hospital changed her shifts again, and Noah's soccer season just started. He looked up at me. If you stayed with us for a few days, it would help so much. You could walk Noah to the bus, maybe start dinner. Just until things calm down. You're not really doing anything there alone anyway. That last sentence stung. Not cruel, just careless, like setting a heavy glass down on a thin table. My eyes went to the calendar on the wall. Bingo in blue, choir in green. From the outside it probably looked like empty space, but it was still my life. Is this temporary? I asked. Because I like my house, Michael. Of course it's temporary, he said quickly. A few days, a week at most. I promise. That night, I folded my life into a small suitcase. A couple of slacks, a few blouses, my nightgown, slippers, pills, Bible. I didn't empty the fridge. I told myself I'd be back before the lettuce wilted. The next morning, before we left, I stood in the middle of my living room. The armchair where I did my crosswords waited by the window. The house felt like it was holding its breath. At the time, I thought the hardest part would be sleeping in a different bed for a few nights. I was wrong. If you've ever turned your whole life upside down for your family, only to wonder later where your own life went, stay with me, you need to hear what happened next. Michael's house was only 20 minutes away, but it felt much farther than that. The first few days, I told myself I was just visiting. I kept my suitcase half unpacked in the guest room, as if at any moment I might zip it up and go home. On the first morning, Noah knocked on my door. Grandma, are you awake? He stood there in his pajamas, clutching his sneakers by the laces. Dad said you're walking me to the bus now, he said, slipping his hand into mine as we stepped outside. The air was cool, the sidewalk damp. For a moment, it felt simple and sweet, like the old days when my whole world fit between breakfast and bedtime. It felt nice, I told myself. Just for a few days. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. Days blurred into weeks. A few days stretched without anyone saying when it would snap back. There was always one more reason for me to stay. Mom, Laura picked up extra shifts. Mom, traffic is terrible this week. Mom, Noah's got a game, can you start dinner? Each request was small, reasonable. They arrived like single raindrops, easy to ignore until suddenly you were soaked. The first Thursday, bingo night back home, I was wiping the counter when Michael called from the hallway. Mom, could you watch Noah tonight? The babysitter canceled. I usually go out on Thursdays, I said. He kissed my cheek on his way past. Just this once. You can go next week. Next week, something else came up. Choir faded the same way. We'll drive you another time, Laura said. This weekend is crazy. It was hard to argue with crazy weekends when I was the only one in the house without a schedule taped to the fridge. After a month, I went back to my house to pick up warmer clothes. The key turned stiffly in the lock. Inside, the air smelled faintly of dust. The lettuce in the fridge drawer had turned soft and dark. I threw it out. My armchair sat by the window exactly where I'd left it, sunlight striping the cushion as if it had been waiting. I watered the plant on the sill, its leaves drooping, soil dry and cracked. "I'll be back soon," I murmured. I wasn't sure if I meant it. Back at Michael's, the guest room slowly stopped feeling like a guest room. Noah stacked his old board games in one corner. Then a folding treadmill appeared against the wall. One afternoon I opened the closet and found boxes shoved in beside my clothes. My sleeve snagged on a wire garland. "We needed somewhere to put that stuff," Laura said when I mentioned it. "You don't mind, do you?" I heard myself say, "Of course not." Inside, something bent a little. One Sunday at church, Mrs. Jenkins caught my arm. "Lydia, we've missed you in choir," she said. "You disappeared." "I've been staying with Michael," I told her. "Helping out for a few days." She tilted her head. "How many few days has it been?" I did the math and didn't like the answer. "I don't know anymore," I admitted. She squeezed my hand. "You know, you're allowed to have a life of your own, even if you're a mother." Her words followed me home. I thought things couldn't get more tangled than that. I was wrong. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. Laura rushed in late, hair messy, shoulders slumped. She dropped her bag by the counter. "Sorry," she said. The hospital was madness. "Mom, did you remember Noah's project?" I looked up from the sink. "What project?" "The Family Roots poster," she said. "He said you were helping him." "It was due today." My hands were in the dishwater. "No one told me," I said slowly. Michael walked in behind her, loosening his tie. "Mom, we talked about it yesterday," he said, irritation in his voice. "You said you'd handle it." "I was on the phone with the doctor's office yesterday," I replied. "I didn't hear anything about a poster." He sighed, a long, heavy sound. "This is what I mean, Laura. It's like we're juggling her stuff and ours. I thought having her here would make things easier." The words landed harder than he knew. I dried my hands and turned to him. "Michael," I asked quietly, "am I a problem to juggle now?" He wouldn't quite meet my eyes. "That's not what I said." But it was close enough. I didn't shout. I didn't slam any doors. But inside, something small and tired stood up. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I sat alone at the kitchen table with a cup of tea gone cold. The house felt too big for the soft noises it made, the hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the clock. For the first time, I let myself ask a question I had been pushing away. When did my life stop being mine? I thought about all the years I had taken the smaller piece of cake, the less comfortable chair, the sofa instead of the bed. I thought about how easily I had put my house keys in Michael's hand, telling myself it was just for a few days. I remembered my own mother once standing at a sink in a cramped apartment, looking at me over her shoulder. "Be careful, Lydia," she had said. "If you're not, you'll spend your whole life waiting to be invited into places you already belong." Back then, I didn't understand. Sitting in Michael's kitchen, I finally did. For years, I had been waiting to be needed, to be asked, to be useful. I had confused being necessary with being loved. Slowly, a different thought formed. What if I was allowed to choose where I lived, even now? What if I was allowed to choose how I spent the days I had left? The next week, when everyone was out, I took the bus back to my house. The porch rail paint was chipped. Weeds had pushed up in the flower bed. Inside, the plant on the windowsill had given up completely. I threw it away and stood in the quiet kitchen, feeling the shape of my own life pressing back around me. This house was mine. My name on the deed. My memories in every corner. I had walked away from it as if it were nothing more than luggage. "I forgot you," I whispered, to the walls, to myself. I forgot me. Back at Michael's that night, I took out a notebook and drew 3 columns. On the first, I wrote, "Things I do for them." The list grew quickly: school runs, dinners, laundry, waiting for packages. On the second, I wrote, things I do for me. The pen hesitated. I wrote, take pills on time. It looked thin. On the third, I wrote, things I want to do for me. The page stayed blank for a while. Then, slowly, go back to choir, have coffee with Marie, sleep in my own bed sometimes, wake up in a room that feels like mine. The next day, I made an appointment at the bank. I want to understand my finances, I told the young woman behind the desk. I need to know my options. We went through my savings, my small pension, my house. It was a lot to absorb, but by the end I felt like someone who had opened a locked drawer and finally seen what was inside. I didn't tell Michael about that meeting. Not yet. That piece of my life was mine to hold for a while. I also phoned Mrs. Jenkins. Is the choir still on Thursdays? I asked. Of course, she said. 7 o'clock. I'd like to come back, I told her. Saying it out loud felt like opening a window. At home, I began to make small changes. When Noah asked, Grandma, can you wash my jersey right now? I smiled and said, I'll do it in the morning, honey. Tonight I'm resting. When Michael asked me to stay up and wait for a late delivery, I said, I'm going to bed at 10. If it comes after that, you can bring it in. Nothing exploded. No one disowned me. The world kept turning, but something in me had shifted. One afternoon, as we walked back from the bus stop, Noah squeezed my hand. Grandma, he said, are you ever going back to your house? I've been thinking about it, I answered. Why do you ask? He kicked a pebble down the sidewalk. Dad said it's just sitting there. But I like that you have a house. It feels like you. His words settled in my chest like a small, warm stone. That night, as I stirred a pot of soup, I turned to Michael. We need to talk about where I live, I said. He glanced up, surprised. What do you mean? I wiped my hands on a towel and met his eyes. You brought me here for a few days. It's been 2 years. I need to decide if this is my home now, or if I'm going back to mine. And this time, it has to be my decision. What happened next wasn't a miracle. But it was the beginning of something that felt a lot like respect. Michael didn't answer me right away. He turned down the stove and leaned against the counter, fingers pressing into the edge. I didn't realize it felt like this to you, he said at last. I just thought, we were all helping each other. I wanted to help, I said. I still do. But somewhere in there, my life disappeared. I don't know where I live anymore, Michael. Not really. He looked younger in that moment, like the boy who used to come home with scraped knees and sit at my table, waiting for me to fix things. You're saying you want to move back, he asked. I'm saying, I replied, that I want to be the one who decides. Not the emergencies. Me. He rubbed his forehead. We've treated you like a resource, he admitted. Not like a person who has her own plans. That's how it's felt, I said. Like I'm an extra drawer you keep stuffing things into, because it's convenient. He winced. I'm sorry, Mom. Before I could answer, Noah wandered in, holding a sheet of poster board. Look, Grandma, he said. I finished the Family Roots project. I got an extension. He pointed to a spot near the center. My name sat there in his careful letters, Grandma Lydia, with small leaves drawn around it. These are for the people who take care of me, he explained. I put a lot around you. You're like the main root. My throat tightened. I don't want to disappear from his tree, I said quietly to Michael. I just don't want to disappear from my own life to stay on it. The room fell still. So what do you want? He asked. I want both homes to be real, I said. I want a room here that is truly mine, not a storage closet with a bed. And I want to keep my house. I'd like to spend some weeks there, some here. Because I choose to, not because I'm being passed around. Laura had been standing in the doorway, listening. I'm sorry about the closet and the boxes, she said. I didn't think about how it felt. I just saw empty space. I let it happen, I replied. I kept saying yes when I should have said, this matters to me. Laura nodded. We can fix that. The den downstairs, we hardly use it. We can clear it out and make it your room. Your chair, your pictures. Your door to close. Michael glanced at me. And we can work out a schedule, he added. If you want to spend a month at your house, we'll bring Noah over. We'll come to you. You won't be alone unless you want to be. It wasn't a grand miracle. No one offered to give me back the 2 years. But something straightened inside me. A few weeks later, my armchair sat in the den at Michael's, under a warm lamp and a framed photo of me and my late husband. The room no longer looked like storage, it looked like a place someone claimed. And in my own house, a new plant stood on the windowsill where the old one had died. Its leaves were small and bright, reaching toward the light. I watered it slowly, watching the soil darken and hold. Getting older hadn't taken my dignity. Handing over all my choices had. And dignity, I realized, could be reclaimed in small, ordinary ways, a cleared-out room, a key you keep, a word spoken on time instead of swallowed. I couldn't make my family love me exactly how I wanted. But I could choose not to treat myself like a temporary guest in my own life. If you've ever been treated like a burden, or felt yourself fading into the background just because you're getting older, I hope you remember this, you are still allowed to choose. Your time, your space, your voice. And if this story touched your heart, you can like this video, leave a comment, or share it with someone who might need to hear it. If you'd like more stories like this, you're always welcome to subscribe to this channel, Lydia's True Stories.